And joining us now for a conversation about the situation in the Western Balkans is Ivana Stradner from the Foundation of the Defense of Democracies. Hello and welcome to TVP World. Good to have you with us.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So let me start by asking you, the European Council, right, in March of this year, has opened the accession procedure, right, for Bosnia and Herzegovina. And now we see Russia calling on the Security Council to meet because apparently the situation in the country is so very bad. Is there a link?
So apparently what is happening right now, there is a draft resolution going on in the United Nations to establish actually an international day to commemorate the Srebrenica genocide. And that has been sent to the UN General Assembly for a vote. So what happened just a few days ago, Russia actually called a meeting, making sure that this resolution doesn't move forward. So Russia has been doing everything possible to deny genocide in Srebrenica in 1995 and to make sure, what they like to call to protect, their actually proxies in the region. They call this resolution a one-sided and a political thing. And not only that, they immediately started spreading this information campaign that if this resolution moves forward, that is actually going to contribute to opening a new front and to destabilize the Balkans.
Right, 8,000 men, over 8,000 men, right, and young boys killed in 95.
Srebrenica alone,
right.
yes. I mean,
how can you deny that?
And it seems that the Russians are actually onto something there, like you're saying. So I would assume that this is all related to Mr. Milorad Dodik once again being up to no good. What do you think could happen next here? Because the rhetoric coming out of Republika Srpska, secessionist rhetoric, as was already noted by a previous report by the United Nations, could actually be just a prelude to something even worse. At least that's what some people are saying. Could we see a scenario whereby Bosnia and Herzegovina, of course, it has its European aspirations, but these aspirations will be broken by some sort of violent event precipitated by what's happening in Republika Srpska right now?
So for anyone who has been following the Balkans for many years, this really doesn't come as a surprise because the situation is indeed very tense. The U.S. intelligence just recently warned of a possible escalation in the region, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but also in Kosovo. The same rhetorics came from the United Kingdom, but also from NATO Secretary General, who warned about Russia's activities, hybrid activities in the region. So nobody should be surprised about that, because make no mistake, Russia has been trying to open a second front. You just see how Russia is amplifying the situation in Georgia, what is happening in Moldova. So the Balkans is also part of that playbook. So what is really different in 2024 compared to other years? It is that Milorad Dodik, he was just recently in Russia. Let's not forget that he's sanctioned by the United States. He was awarded by the Russian government for his actions. So, and he, as you mentioned, has been threatening with a secession. So a lot of analysts in the West, they believe that this is still a bluff. But he has been, trying to make sure that the West is a paper tiger, and with the backing coming from Russia and coming from Belgrade, it's a dream come true to make sure, to completely undermine the Dayton Accord to stop, the wars in the Balkans back in the 90s. So there is also European forces that are not very powerful over there. The question of NATO commitment to the Western Balkans is also something that is not clearly understood. The only clear rhetorics came actually from the United States. They claim, along with actually the United Kingdom, they're willing and absolutely they will not allow any secessionist movement coming forward. And here is the thing, Dodik, along with his friends in Belgrade, including President Vučić, they had been pushing for the agenda of the Great Serbia, something similar to the Russian world. They wanted to announce recently the Serbian world, basically that all Serbs should live under the same, cultural framework. And as a matter of fact, Dodik was recently very, very clear about his intentions to unite Republika Srpska with Serbia and to claim that he doesn't, want to live under the same air, with other entities over there. So words are words, facts are facts. The good news is that the United States sent a very, very clear message, but this is not enough. I do believe that we need to strengthen forces there, especially in Brčko, to make sure, that there are it's impossible, for Russia to destabilize that with its allies over there. So we have to really, really make sure that Bosnia does not implode. And here is actually the thing. Russia does not need to send tanks and jets over there, along with its Serbian allies. They do not need to do that. All they really need to do is to use special operation forces. And if you think that this is impossible, let me just remind you that in 2023, in Kosovo, which is another area that might also implode, Serbia in May last year injured 19 NATO peacekeepers. And later in September, there was another attack in Banjska, what is called the Banjska incident. Why? Because there is a NATO peacekeeping mission there. And Putin, along with its allies in Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, including Milorad Dodik, they've been trying, to show that the alliance is a paper tiger. So for those particular reasons, the Balkans is truly, truly on the verge of potential, conflicts. Whether we can see something like what we are seeing right now in Ukraine, as of today, I do not see something like that, but I do see more escalation similar to what we saw in 2023, which is the typical part of hybrid warfare playbook with a little green man.
Right, so you've mentioned the role that the US is playing, but what about the EU? I mean, what have they done so far? What they could do? What are the plans?
The European Union, I have to admit, they're still in the phase of appeasement. They are very afraid of potential escalation coming from Belgrade, so they are doing everything possible to appease President Vučić, along, with certain, funds, and to making sure that he is actually on the European Union path. Because probably they believe that, he is the only one that can bring the Balkans towards the European Union, which in my view, it is quite naive, because he is using the word that Serbia is on the European Union path. He does not mention the European Union membership. So for that reason, I do believe that the European Union and their appeasement is in part why we are where we are, because kindness is weakness. And all these, rhetorics and gifts and carrots are not going to prevent things, just as we saw last year. Also, another problem within the European Union is certainly they have certain issues in terms of sanctioning the leaders, but also let's not forget that there is Orban, who has very, very close ties to the Serbian president and Mr. Dodik. So that's also something that can actually block the European Union to talk, in one voice. But nevertheless, I do believe that eventually the European Union will have to wake up. As a matter of fact, here in the United States, while we are concerned about, our elections in November, what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening in Ukraine, what is happening with China. We are very, very distracted. And I truly hope that around this time that it will be the European Union that will also help the United States to wake up to the threat that Russia with its allies pose to the European Union coming from the Balkans. Because make no mistake, This war in Ukraine, it is not only about Ukraine, and Putin is not going to stop at Ukraine. Putin does not need to roll on tanks and jets in places such as Georgia or Moldova in the Balkans. He's using very different toolkit that is just below the threshold of war. And but even though these activities are below the threshold of war, they are detrimental to the European security. It is truly high time for the West to wake up.
And while the West is in the process of waking up, shouldn't it also look at the way in which these narratives are being spun by leaders of countries such as not only Hungary, which you've already mentioned, or indeed Georgia, but also in the Western Balkans, we have Milorad Dodik, we have Alexander Vucic. Do you think there is any commonality in terms of the values that they are purporting to share with their voters, with what they're essentially offering? What is it that they claim they are all about? Because they are not just saying, you know, we're pro-Russian, we're going to pull you into the Russian mirror, so to say, the Russian world. This is not what they are saying. They are actually creating this sort of alternative reality of different narratives and false information. So what is it based on, basically?
And perhaps this is why this Srebrenica discussion is so important, right? Whether it was or it wasn't a genocide, where perhaps this is why it's so crucial.
So absolutely, you're right. President Vucic, he announced that Serbia has a balancing strategy between East and West. Just very soon, Serbia will welcome the president of China, and President Vucic has been balancing between Beijing, Moscow, Brussels, and Washington D.C. So his rhetoric, it's not, you know, that Serbia is going to be just part of the Russian world. On the contrary, he has a rhetoric also for the West, that the only thing that he cares about is economic development, which is exactly what people in the West wants to hear. At the same time, he's doing businesses with China. He has welcomed Chinese weapons. He has welcomed also the Russian weapons. So a very similar strategy that he has learned from his counterpart in Hungary. And having said that, that's the strategy that he has been using against the West. And not only that. Another strategy that he has been using is always to escalate the crisis and then to de-escalate this crisis and then to position himself as a source of stability, as a factor of stability in the region. And unfortunately, that's something that many leaders in the West has bought so far, which is very problematic. And with this resolution, what you just mentioned, it is he went to the United States to make sure, you know, that this resolution doesn't move forward. He said that he met with numerous leaders. He immediately started portraying Serbia as a victim, and that everyone in the West is against Serbia. But basically, one other thing that both Dodik but also certain circles, political circles in Serbia have been spreading is that if this resolution moves forward, that will be actually escalate the crisis in the region, and that will cause like a further conflict, which is exactly what Russia has been doing so far. Then naturally, you know, Russia is upset about this resolution because they are trying to do everything possible to prevent it through their allies. So I do believe that it's also very good for this resolution to move forward, not only because of the establishment of July 11 as an important day, as the International Day of Remembrance for the genocide in Srebrenica, but also because this will really show that Russia and China are paper tuggers and they cannot help their allies. So there is also the moral component, but also a strategic component. And I do not believe that this resolution can escalate actually the crisis. They can use it just as an excuse, but regardless of this resolution and what is happening in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but also in Kosovo, are already enough indicators that the region is destabilized.
Right, and let me just ask you at the very end about other countries, right? Do you see that perhaps Bosnia and Herzegovina could introduce solutions similar to Rwanda or some other places which experienced genocide and then sort of, undertook policies to increase social cohesion? What is the way out of this, right?
So I do believe, as I said, that this resolution is tremendously important because not only because of July 11 that will be declared as the International Day of Remembrance for the genocide in Srebrenica. That was, as you mentioned, initiated by Germany and Rwanda, but also co-sponsored, by the United States, France, Bosnia, and some other countries. But also, this is very important resolution because that will actually claim that it's impossible to move forward with genocide denial. And that is also not only a political act, but also it is politically important because in the region you still have countries and individuals that deny the Srebrenica genocide. I mean, just on the streets of Serbia, you actually had different murals and walls across, on the streets of Serbia, filled with genocide perpetrators from the 90s. So this is something truly that is unacceptable for any country that wants to move forward towards the European Union. So I do believe that this is truly a step in the right direction, and let's see where this goes.
So Ivana Stradner there about the challenges of confronting the difficult past and also of creating a political environment that would be conducive towards stepping back to the path to the European Union, something that has proven to be very difficult for Bosnia, at least for the time being.
Thank you.